All right, so cheers to the Cooperative Commonwealth. So do you want to start by introducing yourself and giving a little backstory to your involvement in Black Star?
My name is Menard. I've lived in Austin since 1984 with a 6-year exception that I won't talk about. And I became aware of Black Star Co-op, I guess, in 2008. And we have a weekly alternative newspaper called the Austin Chronicle that has politics and movie reviews and events and all that kind of thing. And in the back is little 6-point type ads of stuff to do this weekend, right? So I'm looking at the Chronicle 6 years ago, looking for something to do. And it says, hey, come out to the world's first cooperatively owned brew pub, beer social, free beers, talk about cooperative stuff. And free beers, I saw that and I'm like, okay, I'm going. So my wife and I went. It was a Saturday night, and it was the beers. In fact, this is the Vulcan that I'm drinking, and this beer was served that night, along with several other beers that had already been under development by Jeff Young, the brewer at the time, in his little 50-gallon arrangement in his garage. So part of it was testing the batches of beer. Part of it was socializing the cooperative idea of a brew pub, mostly searching for members for funding and for critical mass, right? So when we arrived, they said, hey, welcome, here's your beer tickets. By the way, if you happen to join tonight, you get a free t-shirt, which I am wearing now. So great. And it was $100 to join at the time. So really didn't know anybody, didn't know anything about it, was not really that knowledgeable about co-ops except for Wheatsville Co-op, and I knew a little bit about it, and REI, which is kind of a bullshit co-op. So went there, tried some of the beers, met some of the people. I guess I probably had I think we got 3 beer tickets. My wife was with me. Chances are I probably drank one of hers. So I had 3 or 4 beers. She might have had one. And I'm thinking to myself, well, so I've had now $35 worth of beer, and I can get a free t-shirt for $100. Even if nothing happens beyond this, I'm only down $60. So I joined, really for no better reason than that. And I was the 38th person to join. I'm pretty sure that was the very first beer social. It may have been the second, but I'm pretty positive that it was the first one. So that's how I found out about it. Oh, and I skipped over my background, I think. So my background, I'm an electrical engineer. Used to do robots and automation, stuff like that, and now I go help salespeople try to sell stuff to big companies that want to buy stuff for a company that, who cares?
And so when you went to the beer social, you kind of went through it, felt like it was a cool idea. So what were the ways of getting involved in that early phase?
So for me, I got involved quite quickly. So there was monthly beer socials, and the beer socials were to raise awareness, drive membership, and I guess principally those, and test out the batches and just generally get some face time with people. By the second or third beer social, the kind of the founder, who's no longer around, wasn't there, and he was usually kind of the mouthpiece for speaking. He'd stand up and speak for 5 or 10 minutes about what it was all about. And he wasn't there that time, and a couple of the other early volunteers, board people, said, would you please do his thing? And I'm like, I've only been to like 3 times. No, you'd be perfect. So I was standing on kegs. Hey, everybody, can I have your attention? My name's Ed Menard. Thank you for coming this afternoon or tonight, whatever it was, and gave my best shot at the little spiel, which surprised me. That's not really my kind of thing, but that was a fun thing. But ongoing from there, we had beer socials for 2 or 3 years. I don't remember exactly. And so I volunteered at the vast majority of them, and they were usually on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, either serving beer, checking IDs, membership table, selling merchandise, what have you. There was a crew of kind of regular volunteers. So I volunteered for the entire time of beer socials. And then incidentally ended up on the board twice as a interim member when other board members left. They asked me to come and fill out their term. I've thought about running for the board, but because of my travel job, I can't always be sure that I'm going to be at the meetings or be able to prepare, and it didn't feel fair to me to ever run for an official board position, although it's something I may do in the future.
And so kind of as you sort of tracked with the project as it kind of grew towards opening a location,
mm-hmm.
what were some of the kind of challenges and kind of key moments for you in that process on the way to opening?
So we had, a moment ago I was telling you before we started the camera that some of the features in the brew pub were voted on by the members. So that was a pivotal meeting that we had. It was actually at the Elks Club in South Austin. I remember that meeting very clearly because we thought we were getting close to having a location. We were thinking about design elements. We did have a preliminary location chosen in, and I may get this date wrong so somebody can correct me, I want to say 2009, that fell through. and that was just about the time the recession was getting going, and it was not an optimal location, but we had a general membership vote about it, and it was passed. But it just didn't happen for money reasons and for recession reasons. So that was a pivotal moment in that, had that happened, would it have been more or less successful? It's hard to say. And then I guess the next pivotal moment, which I wasn't directly involved in, was I had talked about this property on the car on the way here. This was a distressed property. It was a greenfield redo from a chemical plant. It's a mixed-use space. There's over that way. There's some apartments and some what they call like work-living spaces, right? And then this strip here that's on Lamar Boulevard is retail, and this was completely empty. So a pivotal moment for the co-op, not so much for me, was getting a deal with the developer here to take this space advantageously to us to fit it up and get it started. And what we got is a much more modern kind of feel. I talk about like IKEA or Starbucks. It doesn't look like we thought it was going to look, like a dumpy old dark draft house kind of place, which is what we all sort of had in mind.
And so when it came to sort of figuring out the financing and all of the kind of money side of it, what was the process in terms of figuring out how much was equity and where did other money come from? How did that fit together?
There's probably a lot of better people to talk to about that than me, but I'll tell you what I know. So when I joined, it was $100 to join. We have roughly about 3,000 members now, so it went to 150 sometime after we opened. So I think the equity from members was in the 300. Am I doing my math right? 3,000. Yeah, it's a third. Yeah, $300,000, right? But this is more like $1 million project, and again, other people know more. There was incentives from the developer. A significant piece of the work was what we called a membership share offering. So the members were offered shares, which I have some, and a lot of other people do too, at a very advantageous, much better than a CD kind of rate. And in fact, some of those shares are coming back now, and there's some demand for them in the resale market because they're paying like 6%, and people were anxious to get that at 0.5% CD rates, right?
So were they like preferred shares, that sort of?
Yeah, it was actually called
voting rights, but you get a return on them.
Correct. So it's called a MESO, Member Investor Share Offering. It was actually a formal SEC style document that was prepared for it that described it. The minimum investment was $500 per share. I was here one day when somebody pulled $10,000 out of his pocket in cash and said, "I'll take 200 more shares." Let me escort you back to the office, right? That was not me. But anyway, so a lot of the, and I don't know the breakdown. So there was some commercial financing. I know the brew house was a bank loan because it's secured by the equipment. Then there was this MESO offering. Then there's the investor, the $100 or $150 share, and then there was actually some loans on top of that and some concessions from the landlord.
And thinking back to, again, sort of the organizing period, from your perspective, were there certain key kind of communities of people who kind of came together in this project, like different groups like home brewers or other sort of types of like groups of people, or was it mostly people kind of coming as individuals?
That's a good question. The homebrew community was definitely involved. Not too long after the social started, that we kind of had a homebrew corner, and we had the homebrewers come in and bring some of their beers, and it was just to kind of increase that interaction between the communities. That fell by the wayside a little later, and I think it may have been a conscientious decision to focus more on Black Star than this is just let's come out and drink some beers. But we definitely did that for a year or so. Community-wise, it's pretty broad-based. I mean, you can tell I'm not the youngest kid on the block. A lot of the founders were well under 30 at the time. All walks of life, all kinds of people, students, experienced co-op people from Wheatsville and other co-ops, kids straight out of college, older, more experienced, gray-haired kind of people like me. You name it. And what you didn't ask, and what I'm going to tell you anyway, is one of the huge benefits for me has been my social circle, having been involved with Black Star, is enormous. I have met literally hundreds of people and have 10, 30 friends, 40 friends that I would have never probably otherwise met that I'm close to. And I come here, and I must say it, sometimes it's really crowded and my friends aren't here, but I've got friends I go bicycle riding with, go to other places, we have dinner, Facebook friends, whatever. But impact on me, set aside the cool thing of saying I own a bar or whatever, all the friends and the connections I've made has made this experience amazing for me.
And so early on, when there was a lot of volunteers kind of getting involved, I imagine that the culture is there's a cultural shift from that to when it's being primarily run by kind of paid
Sure.
staff.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that transition and sort of what that felt like and what that looked like?
Sure. So it's interesting because there is kind of a core group of the original people, and that might be a couple, 300 people that probably know each other pretty well and that were involved early on. And we actually have on Tuesdays we have member pint night, and there's a certain group of people that show up then. I would show up more often, but I live way the heck on the other side of town. And then we have been off and on having quarterly member appreciation nights and trying to bring out kind of that core group of people and then trying to grow it into the newer, there's 3,000 members, but they're not all part of this 100 or 200 original kind of set of people. Then trying to grow that out and letting the newer members have the kind of feeling and experience that some of us that have been around for a long time had. And I think that's not been as successful as it could have been. That was the mission of these member appreciation nights. They've kind of fallen off a little bit, and it's something I think the board is trying to refocus on. Slowly lost my train of thought. There was something else here. It'll come back to me.
Well,
there's another point.
Because one thing that that in our experience kind of organizing in Burlington has been, we have this community, people who are all interested in seeing it, and they all kind of come forward with either things that they're willing to work on
Gotcha.
resources they have. And then once you have things a little bit more rationalized and professionalized, there often aren't as many spaces for people to,
Gotcha.
Just say, hey, here's something that I can give to this larger group.
Gotcha. So the thing that I forgot, I'll hit that and then I'll come back to that question. The thing I forgot is there's discussion of a second location that's been going on for a long time for us, and there's some reservation in the member community of if there's a second location, then the membership will be more broken up. A lot of my friends live on this side of town, I live on that side of town. If I go to the south side, they go to the north side, then I won't ever see them, at least at Black Star, right? Although I think the overwhelming thought is a second location is a good idea. To what you just asked about though, I think that there's definitely opportunity in trying to make value in that membership, whether you be the third member or the 5,000th member. And I think that that's something we could have done better at, and I would encourage anybody doing this to figure out how, because people ask you, why should I pay $100 or $150 to join Black Star when I can come there and drink and eat and I don't have to pay that money? I don't get a discount, I don't get anything particular. And the answer is, well, you may get a membership rebate on your spending in the future. Big deal, right? Really? I mean, does it really matter if you're going to get a $10 check like from REI? I don't really think so. You're eligible to run for the board. Okay, that may interest a small number of people. You're eligible to come to the member assembly meeting. That interests some people because it's fun to get on the inside and understand what's going on. You get a free beer on your birthday, which this is mine, even though it's not my birthday. And you also get one other thing. Slipped my mind. There's one other small thing. But anyway, the point is the package of what you get for being a Black Star. Oh, I know it is. There's member appreciation night and member pint night, so you get some discounts associated with that, which was actually controversial at the beginning. There was a feeling that we shouldn't do that. I think that was a mistake. I think having those discounts is important because I think it helps recruit members. But anyway, to me, the value of being a member is far beyond getting a buck off a beer or getting a free beer on my birthday. It's being able to have the bragging rights. Hey, I own a brew pub, or hey, I've been on the board of a brew pub, or I did this, or I met all these people. I mean, that community and that sense of belonging and owning is huge for me, and I was the 38th guy. I think a real challenge is how do you make that as special for the 3,000th guy?
Right. Yeah, so when one thing you mentioned that I'd like to know a little bit more about is the sort of member assemblies. So those happen on a quarterly basis.
Biannually. Twice a year.
Okay, twice a year. And so can you talk a little bit about kind of what you experience their kind of role to be for both like the formal governance of the co-op, but also sort of the kind of the membership culture?
Yeah, so I'll do the membership culture part first. So you see the same 50 people every time. We have it here in the co-op. We've got 3,000 members, and a quorum is 50 people, and we struggle to get to 50 people. We offer everybody a free beer if they come. Pardon me, at least the first 50 people get a free beer. And even the membership has grown, 50 people. I mean, maybe 55. Never even 100 as far as I know. I've made most of the meetings. Sometimes I'm not able to come, and that's disappointing. But the people you see there are mostly of this first couple, 300 people that joined, and then a few curious people that got involved later on, former board members and such, right? So it's a good experience to reconnect with kind of the origins of the co-op, but I think it's a disappointing that we've not been able to make it bigger. In terms of governance, so there are certain things that have to be voted on by the members. The board may have certain actions that the members vote on. It's largely a reporting avenue for the board to tell, and the workers' assembly as well, to tell the membership, here's how we're doing, here's our finances, here's what our initiatives are, here's our current, how we're doing on the charities we're supporting, or voting on new charities to support, or when those things come up.
And can you talk a little bit, one of the ways that Black Star is really innovative has been in the kind of attempt at a semi-hybrid co-op model between sort of, the worker self-management piece and the consumer ownership piece.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of how that plays out and sort of the day-to-day and kind of maybe the discussions around the creation of that?
I'm probably not the best person to ask about that. I do know that there are different co-op models, and worker self-managed isn't always necessarily the model. I think that worker self-managed from a distance, not ever having been on the workers' assembly, could be a challenge. Clearly, to me, certain leaders emerge whether or not they actually have leader nomenclature. So there are people here who I respect very much, who I think lead this co-op. I believe that there may have been some challenges because we have a beer team, a pub brewers, pub team, which is the front end staff, office team, which is a business team, which is the office people and kind of the financials, and the kitchen team, of course, right? So there's some clear, strong leaders on some of those teams, and maybe not so much on other teams. And I think that the worker self-manage is an experiment of sorts in not the usual American way of doing things, right? So, but leaders still emerge, regardless of whether they have titles or don't have titles, or whether they're team leaders or not team leaders. And I'm not completely sure where I'm going, but maybe more structure there is good. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like Wheatsville has a general manager. We do not have a general manager. I will say that there's a person that works here who I regard as the operative general manager of Black Star Co-op. Does it matter that that person has that title or not? That's above my pay grade. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think of kind of when thinking about Black Star in relation to the kind of larger sort of with just general community Boston and in its relationship to other co-ops? Like how do you see it kind of fitting, like as an institution fitting it?
Again, this is probably an area that I don't know as much as others do, but Austin does have a strong co-op culture. Several people from here have left and gotten involved with other co-ops, and then there are the co-ops of co-ops. I think that it's been certainly a breeding ground for talent going elsewhere, certainly a meeting place for other co-ops, and we try to make ourselves a resource for those kinds of things, whether it be donating beer or having events held here. Specific details, I could refer you to some other people.
Cool. And one other thing that I think is like as we're going forward with our startup is definitely kind of a challenge on the face of it, is how we negotiate sort of going from something that is really truly an informal kind of social network into something that is a really like a going concern.
Right.
And sort of, do you have any just other general thoughts on what might help ease that transition or make that?
I think it probably comes down to finding those special leader people, right? There were a couple that were already in the members assembly that were from other co-ops that were interested in being in this co-op that have been instrumental. There was a couple people that we hired during the MISO process was very canvassing members, right? Cold calling. We actually came up and we would sit in the office and cold call in the evenings, cold calling people, did you want to make a donation, sending letters and stuff. And one of the leaders of this workers' assembly was hired to help with that and has stayed around and become instrumental in our success. So even though it's an ecumenical sort of cooperative thing, we still got to find those special people that can make stuff happen.